Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Analytical Lion. I'm Josh Davis, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting the show throughout the off-season. Now, with the season right on the doorstep, I'm taking things to the next level. Every day this college football season, I'll be releasing content in some shape or form, whether it be the podcast, YouTube videos, or the new Patreon. There's always going to be something new for you to check out. If you can't get enough of Penn State football, you are in the right place. Also, about the Patreon, new this season is a college football betting advice hub, where you can get a one-stop shop to prepare you to bet CFB every Saturday. You can find it with the link in the description, and there are free and paid memberships available depending on your level of interest in betting college football. I highly recommend it even if you don't plan on doing any sports betting. It's a great way to find interesting info and prepare yourself for the best games of the week. Also, before I jump right in, I got the video podcast going. Hello, video watchers. In addition to the normal podcast that I release everywhere, as I've done for the past few years, just an effort to give more content to everybody and a new way to watch the Analytical Lion. All right, let's jump right into things. Today, I'm going to be talking about non-conference games and then specifically a full preview of Penn State, Nevada this Saturday to kick off the Nittany Lions season. It's an interesting question that has sparked debate between many college football fans and analysts in recent years. Is it better to play a hard or easy non-conference schedule? On one hand, you have the aggressive teams that schedule top Power 4 opponents as often as they can, which helps build excitement for unique games early in the season, and also gives your squad a chance to show off their dominance. Games like we have in Week 1, Ohio State, Texas, Clemson, LSU, those are marquee matchups that garner national attention and will propel whoever wins to the top of the rankings. Plus, with the 12-team playoffs, nobody who loses in Week 1 can be counted out from the rest of the way. You could even argue that squads like OSU and Texas could use an early loss to figure out their deficiencies as quickly as possible so that their young QBs and new coaches are better prepared and battle-tested for the more important games later in the year. On the other hand, you have the teams that are scared of competition or simply prefer to have an easier path. Indiana is the big example right now, having canceled 2 games against Louisville and 2 games against Virginia over the next few years, replacing those games with bouts against Kennesaw State, Austin Peay, and Eastern Illinois. Louisville and Virginia aren't even marquee opponents, but Curt Cignetti would prefer to avoid as many Power 4 opponents as possible and keep his team fresh early on in the season. I'll say many SEC teams have been doing this for a long time as well, scheduling FCS schools and low G5 schools in an effort to balance out their tough in-conference schedule. But in Indiana's case, they had to pay a $500,000 fee to Virginia to cancel those games, and they're also losing out on the potential ticket and TV revenue that is gained by playing another Power 4 team on their schedule. Also, for schools that are vying for the playoffs, having a strong resume and strength of schedule is a major talking point at the end of the season, and performance in top out-of-conference games is heavily scrutinized. You have to give yourself the best chance of making the playoffs, and sometimes that means giving yourself opportunities to boost your resume. College football fans have argued about this for years. Is a 12-0 record from a group of 5 team like UCF or Cincinnati better than a 10-2 record out of the Big Ten or SEC? In Cincinnati's case, they beat Notre Dame out of conference and ended up making the playoffs. For UCF, they didn't play anybody of value and were left out. Again, now with the 12-team playoff, teams that play an easy schedule may be rewarded with a bid to the tournament, but it might put them at a disadvantage when they have to win 3 or 4 games against the best teams in the country. The SEC just announced last week that they're going to be moving to a 9-game conference slate starting next year and will keep requiring every SEC team to schedule a Power 4 non-conference opponent. This is the huge news that we had later last week before Week 0 started. This will ensure more high-quality matchups every season, but you know the phones at Rutgers and Wake Forest are still going to be hot with SEC teams trying to schedule them. That's part of the issue as well. So to answer the original question, I think a tough out-of-conference schedule being beneficial just depends on how good you are. If you're a top team that is confident in beating anybody, then scheduling big matchups early on is a great way to get your season rolling with a memorable win, build excitement for the fans, and make your mark in the eyes of the playoff committee. If you're not confident in beating power teams, then don't schedule power teams. While losing a big game isn't the end of the world, it still is a loss and shrinks your margin for error the rest of the season. Let's zoom into Penn State's situation. Right? They used to play in the Big Ten East, which meant every year playing Ohio State and Michigan, along with the occasionally tough Michigan State. After several years of 10-2 and 9-3 records and just missing out of the 4-team playoffs, sweeping changes across college football greatly helped Penn State's in-conference schedule. Yearly matchups against the top contenders in the Big Ten no longer exist. Now, Penn State's year-by-year conference slate is more variant and will be easier some years and harder in others. Especially in the 12-team playoffs, Penn State is a team that will be competing for a spot in the postseason tournament every season so long as they take care of business in Big Ten play and avoid disaster out of conference. There it is again. The out-of-conference slate throwing a wrench in things. Since 2021, Penn State has had a major out-of-conference opponent every season. In 21, they hosted Auburn for the whiteout, and then in 22 went down to the Tigers' place and beat them 41-12, which, according to Auburn, that score doesn't exist. In 2023, they hosted West Virginia in Week 1 for a dominant 38-15 win, and last year they started the season in Morgantown, completing the home-and-home with a 34-12 win. Penn State was supposed to play Virginia Tech in 2020 and 2025, but was forced to cancel the 2020 game due to COVID and then subsequently canceled the 2025 game as well. The result of those canceled games is the Nittany Lions having unusually light out-of-conference schedules the next 2 years until they start an exciting home-and-home with Syracuse in 2027. This season, Penn State start things off by hosting Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova. While this does make the early season very worry-free, there's not very much opportunity for fans to get excited for a big game, and the team doesn't have the best competition to test themselves leading up to the whiteout game against Oregon in Week 5. Let's jump into this Nevada game. The Wolfpack almost beat SMU and Boise State last season, losing those games by a combined 12 points. They've used the transfer portal well and could be a bowl candidate this season. Their QB is Chubba Purdy, Brock Purdy's brother, and is a solid dual-threat quarterback. Their running backs, Caleb Ramseur and Ashton Hayes, are very fast and can both hit home runs if not met at the line. The air raid offense at Nevada is gone and has been replaced by an RPO-heavy scheme, which seems like it will stick with the new OC David Gilbertson taking over. They have lots of pre-snap motion, end-arounds, and misdirection, which all could make for an interesting first challenge for Jim Knowles and Penn State's new defense. However, this is a buy game for Penn State. They're paying $1.5 million to play a Mountain West team that went 3-10 last year. Minnesota shut out their offense last year in a 27-0 win, and I expect a strong opening performance from Penn State in Week 1. My prediction, Penn State 49-3 for Nevada. Hopefully Penn State comes out strong and plays a dominant first half so that they can get the starters out as soon as possible. Yes, I know that first Kyron Hudson touchdown is going to hit like crack. But in a game like this, you want to minimize those guys' reps in terms of volume and maximize them in terms of efficiency. How many plays does it take to score on each drive? How many times can the defense force a 3-and-out? Can the defense create turnovers? Can the offense make big plays? Overall, can the team limit mistakes and penalties? Can they play clean football right out of the gate? The answer should be yes to all of those, so the goal for this one is simply checking off all of those boxes and getting back into the flow of playing football. I can't wait for this weekend, man. It's going to be so exciting back in Beaver Stadium. I've already noticed with how difficult it's been to get parking this year. I get reimbursed for parking, and it has been incredibly difficult to even find good parking in the first place. I think that's just a good sign of where Penn State football is at and how excited people are to go to these games. But let's look at some of the other biggest games on the schedule for Week 1. Of course, there's Ohio State, Texas. A rematch of last year's Cotton Bowl. Both teams hit the reset button over the offseason and replaced major parts of their squads. It'll be Julian Sains and Arch Manning's first collegiate starts, and both of these teams are stacked with talent surrounding them. My gut leans toward the Buckeyes, because of home field advantage, and because they have the two most impactful players, Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. However, this game is essentially a toss-up. We haven't seen them play yet, neither of the teams, and nevertheless, it'll be a fun one to watch. The quote-unquote big game at 3:30 is Bama at Florida State, but most of you are going to be watching Penn State, Nevada, and I would be surprised if FSU kept that one close, so I won't talk very much at all about that. At night, we have LSU at Clemson, which is a battle between an LSU team that tried to go all in this offseason and still couldn't put together an elite roster, and Clemson that plays a cupcake schedule after this tilt in Week 1. If Clemson looks bad in this game, I'm just counting them out. I don't care what they do the rest of the season. They aren't a natty contender in my eyes and have proven that they don't belong in that conversation. If you remember last year, Clemson got crushed in Week 1 by Georgia, found a way to sneak into the playoffs anyways, and then got crushed by Texas. They also lost to their rival South Carolina, so that was an 0-3 record versus the SEC last year. You can see why I'm not teeming with confidence for them going into their LSU game. At the same time, I don't think LSU is a top playoff contender either. Yes, they are a solid squad, but they play a tough schedule again and probably will end the season with 3 or 4 losses. LSU has lost their last 5 season openers and is also 0-5 at the spread in those games. Basically, they've been the worst team in the country in Week 1 lately, and there's not a lot to show why they're going to change that on the road against the talented Clemson squad. I have no idea who wins this game, but both teams need it bad. Finally, on Sunday night, we have Notre Dame versus Miami down south. Yes, Sunday night college football, which is an awesome rivalry game in Week 1. I think this one is fairly simple. The Irish are just better in the trenches. They return 54 starts on the O-line, and the D-line isn't losing a step either. The secondary is my top defensive unit in football, and of course the star running back Jeremiah Love is sensational. They add in top receiver transfers Malachi Fields and Will Pauling to help out their young QB and CJ Carr, and now Coach Freeman has some strong playoff experience under his belt. ND is my preseason number 1 team, and Miami might be a little overrated at AP number 10. They lost 3 games last year with a Heisman candidate quarterback and now rely on Carson Beck to try and take things to the next level. Since Mario Cristobal arrived, the Canes are just 8-15 at the spread as a home favorite versus FBS opponents, but they're going to be underdogs in this one, and I have them losing straight up. And then to finish off the show, every week I'm going to recap the results of my betting picks that are available for free on my Patreon to show you guys how I'm doing. And if you want to get free premier betting advice for college football games, all you have to do is click the link in the description and sign up for a free membership on Patreon where I post my picks every Wednesday. And I'll tell you guys, Week 0 was a heck of a week. I went 7 for 8 on the 8 picks that I made. That is about as close to perfect as you can possibly get. I nailed Iowa State moneyline at plus 130. I had Iowa State at Kansas State at under 50. That also hit. I had Idaho State at UNLV over 64.5. The only one that I didn't get here was UNLV minus 23.5 in a very disappointing game for the Rebels there in Dan Mullen's first game as head coach back with the Rebels. I had Kansas negative 12 as a favorite there. That one. Fresno State at Kansas under 51.5. That hit. Western Kentucky moneyline minus 375. That hit. And to end the night, I had Hawaii moneyline and a thriller over Stanford to get 7 out of 8. That's 88% in Week 0, betting all 5 of the games that were available. And I don't know if I'll be able to keep that number up. Almost surely not. But hopefully that's a great sign of things to come. And the new scouting report for Week 1, with so many more games in the action, will be available on Wednesday for free on my Patreon. Again, link is in the description. Make sure you check that out if you have any interest in college football betting advice. The Analytical Lion Patreon with top picks and analysis. I think that'll be all for this show. A little bit shorter, but we'll see when the full shows will be back live on Com Radio. It should be Monday nights at 8:30. I will obviously keep you all updated in terms of when that's going to be back. But for now, you can keep watching live video podcasts on YouTube, or you can keep watching or listening to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever. So make sure you keep checking out the Analytical Lion content coming out every single day of the week for the rest of the college football season. We're taking it up a notch this season, and I hope you all like it. I'm Josh Davis. Thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time. And as always, go Nittany Lions!